Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to take a stack of information, your articles, research, maybe even personal notes, and really distill the vital insights, helping you get well-informed, fast.
That's the goal.
And today, we're embarking on, well, quite a profound journey. It's into a concept that promises genuine freedom, genuine peace, something really at the heart of human experience. We're diving into non-attachment. And we're looking specifically through the wisdom shared by Dr. Nader Attalla in Chapter 2 of his really transformative book, The Soul, 7 Principles for Psychological and Spiritual Wellbeing.
A very rich source for this topic.
Absolutely.
Right.
So our mission, if you like, for this deep dive is to really uncover what non-attachment truly means. We'll explore its deep roots in ancient traditions, but also its maybe surprising resonance with modern psychology.
Yeah, the connections are fascinating.
And most importantly, we want to discover how this powerful principle can actually profoundly transform your daily life.
Yeah.
Finding that elusive balance.
Between fully engaging with the world,
Right. Experiencing all its richness.
but without being consumed by its inevitable changes. That's the sweet spot, isn't it?
Exactly.
And what Dr. Attalla posits, which is really compelling, is that mastering the single principle non-attachment can actually unlock all the others in his system.
Wow. Okay. So it's foundational.
Completely.
Yeah.
It suggests a fundamental shift in how we relate to, well, everything around us and, crucially, everything within us.
Okay.
So we'll unpack why our inherent resistance to life's natural flow, change, loss, why that's actually the source of so much suffering.
And how embracing non-attachment isn't about becoming like a robot, emotionless.
Precisely. It's not about being disconnected. It's about finding a deeper, more resilient kind of happiness, one that truly lasts.
Okay, let's get into it. Let's unpack this with that vivid image Dr. Attalla uses. You know the one, the sandcastle?
Yes.
Have you watched one? Built with hours of care, attention, and then the tide just comes in and washes it away.
And that little pang you feel.
The momentary ache, that, he says, is attachment meeting impermanence, face to face.
A perfect illustration.
Because Dr. Attalla emphasizes this fundamental truth. Everything in this world is transient. It's passing.
Nothing lasts forever in the form it takes now.
Right. So loss or change isn't just possible. It's inevitable.
And it's our resistance to that inevitability.
That's what generates the attachment.
Yes. And with it, the suffering, the psychological pain, even that deep-seated fear of death.
Because we're allowing ourselves to be governed by worldly things which are fleeting by nature.
So we continually resist life's natural flow. We fight against the current.
And when loss or change inevitably happens, as it must,
It can plunge us into really intense negative emotions, anxiety, depression, grief.
yeah.
Michael A. Singer in The Untethered Soul, he captures this perfectly. He says, life is continuously changing, and if you're trying to control it, you will never be able to fully live it.
Yeah, it's hard. Trying to control the uncontrollable.
Your minds instinctively do it, don't they? Clinging to what seems desirable, pushing away what doesn't.
It's like a default setting.
But the paradox Dr. Attalla highlights is just fascinating. It's precisely in surrendering our worldly attachments
And letting go of that control.
that we discover genuine happiness and presence,
Yeah.
real presence.
Okay, so it's not apathy, not indifference.
Not at all. It's about holding life with open palms, rather than a clenched fist.
I like that image. Open palms.
It simply means being okay with or without. That's a key phrase he uses.
Okay, with or without.
Free from the demands of worldly attachments, whether it's objects, a car, a house, or people, or even our own body, our thoughts, emotions.
Even life itself.
Even life itself, ultimately. It's a profound letting go.
And this is where it gets really interesting for me. You mentioned Dr. Attalla believes non-attachment is the foundation for all 7 principles in his book.
Yes, he really elevates it.
He suggests if you truly master this one, the others start to fall naturally into place.
Which really underscores its significance, doesn't it? It's not just one technique among many.
It's the bedrock. And he's very clear, as you said, it's not about becoming emotionless or disconnected.
Right. That's detachment, a different thing entirely.
In this state of inner freedom, you're no longer controlled by desire or attachment or by the constant demands of the ego.
The ego wanting things to be a certain way.
Exactly. Instead, you can fully engage in all of life's experiences, but with flexibility. You're not rigidly fixated on outcomes
You can enjoy things, appreciate them.
without depending on them for your happiness. Because the real wellspring of joy, he says, flows from within.
From your authentic self.
Right. And this shift, this realization, helps eliminate that fear of loss or change, or at least lessen its grip.
It changes your relationship with impermanence.
But it's crucial to remember, and he stresses this, non-attachment is a path. It's not like a switch you flip.
It's a practice, a discipline.
It takes consistent practice, time, patience to develop this wise virtue.
So we're seeking progress, not perfection.
Yeah, exactly. Each day offers new opportunities to practice letting go. Little things, big things.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, across spiritual traditions,
Yeah.
the highest path is often described as freedom from both attachment and aversion, wanting things and pushing things away.
So non-attachment addresses the wanting side.
Primarily, yes. And it's been taught as the way to enlightenment or liberation across incredibly diverse traditions. Buddhism, obviously, but also Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Taoism.
Wow, that's a wide net.
It really is. They all emphasize its transformative power in their own ways.
And what's truly compelling, as you touched on earlier, is how modern psychology has independently arrived at similar insights.
Right, without necessarily drawing on these ancient texts initially.
So things like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT,
Which helps us challenge those sticky, unhelpful thought patterns.
and dialectical behavior therapy, DBT.
Which focuses a lot on emotional regulation, mindfulness, acceptance.
They now echo this ancient wisdom.
In many ways, yes. They emphasize developing a kind of healthy detachment from thoughts, creating space between you and the automatic narratives running in your mind.
Seeing thoughts as just thoughts, not necessarily reality.
Exactly. This convergence of ancient wisdom and contemporary science. It really highlights the universality of this truth, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, so Dr. Attalla guides us through these stages of, let's say, psychological and spiritual growth, ways to cultivate non-attachment.
And they all lead towards that essential question, who am I?
Right. He suggests using these concepts as focus points for meditation or just contemplation to build that inner resilience.
Practical exercises for the mind.
So the first step in this spiritual growth journey, recognizing that you are not the materialistic possessions you own.
Obvious, maybe, but hard to internalize sometimes.
Totally. You're not your money, your house, your car, your job title, your degrees.
These are things you have, circumstances, roles.
Not who you fundamentally are. He suggests trying this. Look at your most prized possession, something you really feel attached to.
Okay.
And ask yourself honestly, if this were suddenly gone, vanished, would I still exist? Would my essential nature, the core of me, truly change?
And the answer, when you sit with it, is usually no.
Right. And the freedom in that realization, he notes, can be immediate. It can be profound.
That's the first layer of identification to peel back. The second step, understanding that you are not your body.
Okay, deeper still.
You are neither the physical beauty you might possess, nor the physical illness you might be suffering from.
Those are experiences of the body.
Exactly. Your body serves as your vehicle through life, your interface with the world, but it isn't you.
Think about it. Haven't you noticed how your sense of I, your sense of self, remains continuous?
Despite the body changing dramatically.
Yeah. From childhood to now, it's completely different physically.
Yet the you that's experiencing it feels constant.
Something within you witnesses these changes rather than being defined by them.
Which raises that important question for you, the listener, to consider. If your physical form is constantly in flux, what truly remains constant about you? What is that witnessing presence?
Okay, step 3. And this one, he says, is a stumbling block for many.
I can imagine.
Realizing that you are neither your thoughts nor your feelings.
Wow, that's a big one. We identify so strongly with our thoughts and emotions.
Absolutely. You are not the ideology you hold, your mental positions, your models, your plans.
Or the preconceived ideas, the conditioning absorbed from society.
Right. You're not your physical desires or even the sexual orientation you identify with. These are aspects of experience, not the entirety of you.
Dr. Attalla states that the purpose of meditation in this specific context is to practice pure detachment from the notion that thoughts are mine or me.
To see them arise and pass away without clinging.
Yes, so the next time anxiety, say, floods your mind, instead of getting swept away,
Try asking.
who is noticing these thoughts?
Shifting from the thought to the observer.
Exactly. That moment of witnessing, he says, creates liberation. It creates space.
A profound shift in perspective.
Ultimately, this whole journey, seeing you're not your possessions, not your body, not your thoughts or feelings, leads you to recognize that you are something far beyond these temporary aspects.
Okay, so what are you then?
As you arrive at the heart of who you truly are, you discover your authentic self, your essence.
What some traditions call the Buddhist self, the Christian soul, the Hindu Atman, different names for perhaps the same core reality.
Possibly. Beyond your ego, with its collection of memories, identities, preferences, lies this expansive greatness,
An openness to the presence of self, or what some might call God, or the universe.
representing the highest level of psychological and spiritual growth in this model.
Saints and sages throughout history, they've guided us to ask these deep questions, haven't they?
Mm-hmm. Who sees what I see? Who feels what I feel? Who dreams my dreams? Who thinks my thoughts?
Descartes famously landed on, I think, therefore I am. Cogito ergo sum.
Right, but the deeper truth, from this perspective, reveals you are not your thoughts. You are the one aware of your thoughts.
You exist regardless of thinking. The awareness is primary.
As one teacher beautifully put it, you are not defined by what you do or what you have. You are the one who is building the building.
I like that, the consciousness behind the action.
When you truly explore the depth of questions like, who am I, and is there something in me that will never die? Your soul, your spirit,
You discover, beyond the ego mind, a place of pure silence.
unconditional and eternal, that's the claim.
And one powerful way to actually experience this infinite love or presence within is through regular meditation and contemplation.
Practice, not just theory.
Right. Dr. Attalla believes such realizations can profoundly transform the anxiety and fear faced by people with terminal illnesses, like stage 4 cancer.
How so?
When they begin to understand, perhaps even experience, that physical death is not the final word for their essential self, their consciousness.
It reframes the entire experience of dying.
Exactly. And he notes that studies, particularly involving psychedelic-assisted therapy for terminal cancer patients,
A growing field of research.
show it can be a powerful tool for facilitating this very understanding, opening doorways to transcendent awareness that significantly reduces death anxiety.
Fascinating implications there.
Absolutely. So let's look more closely now at how non-attachment resonates across different wisdom traditions.
Okay.
We've all felt that desperate impulse, haven't we? Clinging to things that inevitably slip through our fingers.
It's a very human experience.
The Buddhist tradition recognized this thousands of years ago, teaching that profound truth. Our attachment to impermanent things is the source of our suffering.
The root cause.
Picture yourself gripping a handful of sand. You know this analogy.
The tighter you squeeze.
The more it escapes between your fingers.
Yeah.
That's how Buddha saw our relationship with worldly attachments, our desperate attempt to hold on to what is inherently fleeting.
Fighting reality.
When Buddha sat beneath the Bodhi tree, wrestling with these universal questions of human suffering.
He wasn't looking for complex philosophy initially, was he?
No, he uncovered 4 simple, profound truths. The 4 noble truths.
Foundational to Buddhism.
The first, the truth of suffering, dukkha, which isn't just about, like, agony. It's the underlying dissatisfaction, the sense that things aren't quite right even in good times, the inherent fragility.
The friction of existence.
Yeah, acknowledging that life isn't always sunshine and rainbows. Even in joy, we sense its impermanence. The second truth, suffering comes from attachment, or craving, tanha. That ache we feel when we anchor our happiness to things that cannot last.
Identifying the cause.
But the good news is the third truth. Freedom is possible. Nirodha. We can loosen that white-knuckled grip.
There's a way out.
And finally, the fourth truth offers the path, magga. The eightfold path practices like mindfulness, compassion, ethical conduct, and of course, non-attachment to transform our relationship with the world.
A practical guide to liberation.
Exactly.
And what's fascinating here is how Christianity, too, holds this maybe hidden treasure of non-attachment, long before mindfulness became trendy.
How so?
Well, when Jesus said, be in the world but not of it, that wasn't just poetry, was it?
No, it feels like a practical instruction.
A radical invitation to a different way of being. And when he proclaimed, the kingdom of God is within you,
He was pointing inward, wasn't he?
to the same essential truth Buddha discovered, that looking outside ourselves for lasting fulfillment is, well, like trying to catch the wind in a net. It's futile.
Remember the story of the rich young ruler?
Jesus tells him to sell everything.
When Jesus invited him to sell his possessions, it wasn't necessarily about poverty as a virtue in itself, was it?
No, the point seemed to be about freedom, an invitation to discover that true wealth, lasting security, lies beyond what moth and rust can destroy, beyond material possessions.
So in Christianity, the physical world isn't dismissed as an illusion like in some other paths.
No, it's recognized as temporary, like living in a beautiful hotel room,
You can enjoy it, appreciate it.
while recognizing it's not your permanent home. There's something more enduring.
As Paul wrote in Corinthians, we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal.
A clear statement of prioritizing the eternal over the temporary.
And think about the prodigal son for a moment. Wasn't his journey really about attachment?
In a way, yes. He attached his happiness to worldly pleasures, external things.
Only to discover they left him empty, utterly destitute.
So his return home wasn't just a physical journey back to his father.
It was a spiritual awakening, a realization of where true fulfillment, true belonging lies.
Exactly. A return to the source.
Okay, but this often leads to that common question, that misunderstanding. Isn't non-attachment just about being cold, uncaring, detached?
Right. And Dr. Attalla makes a really crucial distinction here. Non-attachment versus detachment.
This is where people can get tripped up.
Yeah, many spiritual seekers can take a wrong turn here. Non-attachment isn't about becoming a hermit, emotionally disconnecting from life.
That's detachment.
And that often leads to its own kind of suffering, apathy, isolation, loneliness.
So non-attachment is different. It's more like learning to dance in the rain.
I love that analogy. Rather than hiding from the storm or getting angry that you're getting wet,
Yeah.
you engage with it differently.
You participate fully in life's joys and sorrows.
Without being swept away or completely defined by them. You maintain your center.
Imagine holding a butterfly. Clutch it too tightly, you'll crush it. Keep your hand completely closed. You won't even see its beauty.
Right.
But hold it with an open palm, fully present to its wonder, allowing it freedom. That's when you experience something magical that's closer to non-attachment.
Presence without possession.
And building on that, another question often pops up. Wait, doesn't loving someone deeply mean being attached to them?
The love paradox.
This is maybe the most beautiful paradox of non-attachment. How does Dr. Attalla address this?
He clarifies that true love isn't possession, it's freedom.
Okay.
When you truly love someone, you don't see them as yours to keep or control. You recognize them as a free, independent being.
Whose journey may intertwine with yours.
But for reasons perhaps beyond just fulfilling your own needs or desires, there's a respect for their autonomy.
Think about the healthiest relationships you've witnessed. Aren't they often between people who feel relatively whole and complete within themselves?
Yeah, they don't desperately need each other to fill some void.
They freely choose each other, again and again.
They complement rather than complete one another.
But this doesn't mean you never experience pain when relationships change or end, right? Non-attachment isn't numbness.
Absolutely not. It's a profound acceptance, perhaps, that love and loss are two sides of the same precious coin. You can love fully, knowing change is possible.
You feel the pain, but it doesn't destroy your core sense of self.
Something like that. It changes the quality of the grief, perhaps.
Now, you mentioned modern psychology earlier. This point about healthy relationships and self-completion finds an interesting twist there, doesn't it?
It does. Research on secure attachment theory, for example, actually complements these spiritual teachings on non-attachment beautifully.
They're not opposing ideas.
Not at all. You could see them as sequential stages in human development. As children, we absolutely need secure attachment to caregivers.
To build a healthy emotional foundation.
Right. That secure base allows us to explore the world with confidence, knowing we have a safe harbor to return to.
Carl Jung captured this perfectly, didn't he? He wrote something like, the first half of life is devoted to forming a healthy ego.
The second half is going inward and letting go of it.
So we need to develop that solid sense of self, that healthy ego.
Before we can begin the liberating process of transcending our attachment to it, you need something solid before you can let go of it gracefully.
Build the foundation, then learn to hold it lightly.
Exactly.
And this ties directly into Buddha's concept of the middle way.
Ah, yes. Avoiding extremes.
He himself discovered that extreme renunciation, harsh asceticism, wasn't the answer to suffering.
After years of practices that nearly killed him.
Right. He realized the path to enlightenment wasn't through extreme self-denial, nor through self-indulgence, but through balance.
The middle path between those two poles.
Think of non-attachment like sailing a boat. You absolutely need the water to sail, right?
Of course.
But if that water gets into the boat,
you're in trouble. You sink.
Exactly. You live in the world, you enjoy its pleasures, feel its pains, but you don't let them sink your inner vessel. You maintain your buoyancy.
St. Augustine captured this essence perfectly too. He said, I sat on top of the world when I came to fear nothing and desire nothing.
Wow. Can you just imagine that freedom? that profound peace.
Not needing anything particular to happen externally to feel okay internally.
That's the promise, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. How do we actually practice this in daily life? Let's talk about the self first and then relationships.
Okay. Well, when we truly begin to practice non-attachment, even in small ways, something remarkable starts to happen.
Like what?
Life's inevitable changes, job loss, relationship shifts, health issues, they become less threatening.
You develop resilience.
A deep resilience, yes. But it comes not from trying to control the external environment.
But from transforming your inner relationship with it.
Exactly. And research actually backs this up. Studies have shown that practices promoting non-attachment things like mindfulness, acceptance therapies can significantly reduce symptoms of depression, anxiety, and stress.
Because you're not exhausting yourself fighting reality.
Precisely. Instead of wasting energy trying to control the uncontrollable, you free up immense energy to simply be present for what's actually happening, to respond wisely.
And you mentioned compassion earlier.
Yes, non-attachment powerfully opens the door to genuine compassion when we're not so fixated on our own needs, our own fears, our own agendas.
We can actually see others more clearly.
See them with an open heart. Studies even indicate non-attachment increases empathy and kindness. Qualities our world could certainly use more of.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's apply this to daily life. Starting with something incredibly personal, self-esteem. Have you ever noticed how quickly your mood can just plummet when someone criticizes how you look or questions your intelligence?
Oh, yeah. Hits right at the core sometimes.
Dr. Attalla describes self-esteem as this multi-dimensional house, building on Maslow's hierarchy, where self-esteem is foundational.
Right. Your sense of worth draws from many different wells.
Your physical self, how you look, your health, your performance, achievements, job, your social connections, relationships, your personal values, even spiritual beliefs for some.
All contribute to this structure of self-esteem.
But here's the slippery part, the non-attachment challenge. Clinging too tightly to any one of these self-concepts, even the positive ones.
It's like trying to grasp water.
Yeah. Life's ever-changing nature guarantees it will eventually slip through your fingers. He uses the example of the straight-A student who defines themselves as high-performing.
Their identity is tied to that label.
So when the inevitable B- or even C arrives,
It doesn't just disappoint. It shatters their mirror of self-reflection. Their whole sense of self feels threatened.
exactly. Being non-attached toward yourself, your ego, and its concepts is like learning to dance in the rain rather than demanding the storm stop.
Adapting, flowing.
This nimble relationship with identity allows you to flow with life's currents instead of being battered against the rocks. Without this flexibility, even small changes feel like tsunamis threatening to drown your self-esteem.
So it's crucial to cultivate healthy self-esteem like oxygen for psychological development.
But the wisdom lies in appreciating this worth without clutching it so tightly your knuckles turn white.
Holding it lightly.
When we chain our happiness, our sense of okayness to our physical appearance, our health, possessions, achievements, goals, family, any external measure,
We unknowingly plant seeds of suffering because all those things are subject to change.
everything in this world, your youthful looks, perfect health, impressive job title, even relationships, they will change or be lost eventually.
It's the nature of reality.
Dr. Attalla even notes how parents who overattach to their children, identifying too strongly with their successes or failures,
They often become prisoners of their own fear.
leading to overprotection, control, possessiveness, which can cast long shadows over the child's own development, stifling them.
Yeah. We have to remember that ancient wisdom, nothing truly belongs to us in an ultimate sense.
We arrive empty-handed, we depart the same way.
Everything in between is merely on loan. Experienced, used, cherished perhaps, but not ultimately owned.
And ironically, he points out, this white-knuckle attachment can actually repel what we most desire.
Oh, so.
When we desperately cling to wants or over-identify with aspects of ourselves, we kind of broadcast this signal of lack, of neediness to the universe and others.
Like a thirsty plant that wilts more visibly the more it needs water.
Exactly. This strong desire becomes like a billboard advertising all we don't have, potentially creating a self-fulfilling prophecy that keeps us perpetually wanting, never satisfied.
A vicious cycle.
At the heart of most emotional turbulence, Dr. Attalla argues, lies this single cause: the fear of loss, generated by our ego attachments and identifications.
It all comes back to that fear.
So when we practice holding ourselves lightly, even our most cherished self-concepts, we create space
Space for what?
for profound gifts. Peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, love that isn't conditional, serenity amidst chaos, happiness that bubbles up from within, maybe even glimpses of enlightenment.
The freedom that comes from letting go.
The timeless truth remains simple yet challenging. We are born with nothing, we leave with nothing. How lightly can we hold everything in between?
A powerful question to live with. Now, let's explore non-attachment in relationships. This is where it gets really practical for many people. Imagine your relationship, as Dr. Attalla suggests, like a beautiful garden where both flowers need their own space to bloom fully.
Not crowding each other out.
Exactly. Being non-attached doesn't mean emotionally abandoning others. That's not it at all. It's recognizing that your relationship with yourself deserves the same care and attention you give to others.
Balancing internal and external focus.
One key aspect here is setting boundaries. Clear, healthy boundaries.
With partners, family, friends.
Yes. When you establish them, you create this sanctuary of mutual respect and, importantly, breathing room.
Can you think of a time when saying no, setting a boundary actually strengthened a relationship rather than weakening it? It often does, paradoxically.
It builds trust and respect in the long run. When expressing boundaries, though, the advice is to share your feelings like offering a gift, not wielding a weapon.
Avoid blame and accusation.
Right. Accusatory words act like frost on delicate plants. They trigger the ego's defensive shields in others instantly.
So communicate in ways that feel safe. Use I statements.
Use language that invites understanding rather than provoking retreat, developing that loving, communicative tone. It's like learning an instrument. It takes patience, practice, dedication to harmony.
Another crucial element Dr. Attalla mentions is ensuring time apart.
Counterintuitive for some, maybe?
Perhaps. But think about it. Must birds fly in perfect formation every single minute?
No, of course not.
There's no unwritten law requiring constant connection, constant contact. Those text messages can wait while you enjoy time with friends, or just in your own company.
Like a river that occasionally branches before rejoining, healthy relationships often flow better when each person maintains their independent currents, their own lives.
He suggests scheduling solitude for self-reflection. Those quiet moments when your own feelings can surface and be processed, like precious stones being polished.
You need that inner space. Then there's the challenging but liberating practice of allowing others freedom. Remember the sand analogy. Tightly grasping only makes it slip through faster. Dr. Attalla strongly advises never lowering yourself to begging someone to stay in a relationship.
Or allowing yourself to be used or abused.
In desperate attempts to please someone who already has one foot out the door, it's like watering a plant that's already been uprooted. Exhausting and futile. Respect yourself enough to let go.
And central to healthy, non-attached relationships is the art of compromise.
Finding the middle ground.
Relationships aren't about molding someone into your perfect mirror image, are they?
No. Release the steering wheel. Your partner isn't a vehicle for you to control.
Instead, discover that beautiful middle ground where both your needs can dance together. Seeking common territory isn't just negotiation.
It's the art of building bridges between islands, co-creating solutions.
And Dr. Attalla, drawing from dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT, offers some fantastic classic compromise solutions you can actually use.
Practical tools.
Yeah, like I'll cut the pie, you choose the first piece. Simple fairness.
Turns potential fights into peace.
Or take turns. Peter loves mountains, Mary loves the ocean. Alternate vacations. Creates a rhythm of mutual satisfaction.
Fair enough.
Or maybe do both have it all. If evening plans collide, say dinner out versus a movie, why choose? Craft an evening that somehow satisfies both desires.
Creative problem solving.
Exactly. Or my way when I'm doing it, your way when you're doing it. Respecting different approaches to tasks.
Like different instruments playing their unique parts.
Tit for tat, a balanced exchange. I'll scrub the bathroom if you vacuum.
Sharing the load.
Trial period. If you're uncertain about a solution, experiment. Try it for a set time, then reassess together.
Reduces the pressure of making a permanent decision.
And split the difference. One wants a 10-day escape, the other 5. Meet in the middle at 7. Honoring both perspectives.
These are all ways to navigate differences without demanding your way, respecting both people's needs.
Exactly. It's about finding what works for the relationship.
And finally, to truly embody non-attachment in relationships, Dr. Attalla urges us to practice unconditional love.
The highest form of love.
Often considered so. What if you could love like the sun shines freely, completely, without asking anything in return?
Wow. That's a high bar.
It is, but practice extending this boundless warmth toward yourself first, then others, then all living beings, without exception or conditions. Agape stands as love's highest expression, free from the chains of attachment, possessiveness, dependency. It just loves.
This concept translates beautifully into parenting, too, doesn't it? Parents often feel caught in that crossfire of advice.
Oh, definitely. Don't cuddle too much. Versus practice attachment parenting. It's confusing.
Dr. Attalla suggests the golden path is the authoritative parental style, finding that perfect temperature between scolding control and freezing neglect.
Balance again?
The truth, he says, sparkles with elegant simplicity. Children need both loving human touch and a safe, structured environment to thrive emotionally and physically.
It's not either, but both hand.
This balanced approach means offering affection like sunshine while providing structure like a trellis, all while granting the freedom for your child to grow into their own unique shape.
Non-attachment in parenting is like tending a garden. You respond to your child's needs, watering, feeding, protecting, without demanding specific flowers bloom at specific times in return.
Can you imagine allowing your child to explore their world as freely and safely as possible, given their developmental stage? Teaching them, guiding them, but respecting that they may form their own conclusions eventually.
When children feel this acceptance, this trust, they gain the wings they need to follow their authentic life paths, rather than paths dictated solely by parental expectations or fears.
And psychologist Diana Baumrein's research on parenting styles really illustrates this, based on dimensions of control, or demandingness, and affection, or responsiveness.
Yes, her work is foundational here. Authoritative parents, she found, hit that sweet spot. They masterfully blend structure with heartfelt affection.
They move gracefully with their children, respecting their growing freedom while considering their maturity level.
They listen deeply, offer warmth, but also maintain clear boundaries and expectations. And crucially, they guide through positive reinforcement, celebrating growth, rather than ruling primarily through fear or threats.
And the outcomes for kids raised this way.
Generally very positive. They tend to bloom like well-tended gardens. High self-esteem, good educational achievements, refined social skills, effective conflict resolution. They learn healthy boundaries and typically avoid substance abuse.
Okay, what about the other styles?
In contrast, authoritarian parents impose rigid control with minimal affection. Lots of rules, commands without explanation. Because I said so.
What happens there?
These children might achieve academically sometimes due to the pressure, but their social and psychological development often suffers. Many become distant, passive, struggle with repressed emotions, leading to anxiety and depression.
Then there are permissive parents.
Right. More like friends than guides. Abundant affection, but sparse structure or rules. The child often directs, the parents just support. Punishment is rare.
And the result?
These children often develop decent social skills, but their academic achievements might wither from lack of guidance, and they frequently navigate toward risky behaviors due to lack of boundaries.
And the last style.
Uninvolved or neglectful parents. Deficient in both control and affection. Indifferent, sometimes failing even to provide basic necessities.
That sounds devastating for a child.
It is. These children typically struggle across all domains: academic, social, emotional. Anxiety often shadows them, they become socially withdrawn, and are vulnerable to exploitation and addiction.
So healthy parenting, like a three-legged stool, needs all elements working together.
Healthy attachment providing love and security, independence appropriate to the child's age, balanced with clear structure and boundaries. When one leg shortens or breaks, the whole system becomes unstable. Non-attachment helps parents provide that balance without crushing the child's spirit.
Wow. Okay, let's move into another powerful area. Non-attachment and healing past trauma.
A very important application.
Before we can even begin to release the heavy chains of past trauma, to practice non-attachment to those experiences, we first have to map the terrain of our wounds, right? Understand what happened and how it affected us.
Acknowledge the reality of it. Dr. Attalla explains that emotional trauma isn't just the event itself, it's the earthquake within that shatters your sense of security.
It's the subjective emotional experience, how it reverberates through your inner world.
That's what defines whether something becomes traumatic. The more intensely fear floods your system during the event, the more likely traumatic imprints will remain lodged in the nervous system and psyche.
Most people who experience trauma, they initially struggle, but with time, support, self-compassion.
Many regain their balance naturally. Resilience is common.
But when symptoms intensify rather than fade, when they persist for months and really disrupt daily functioning.
That's when PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, or even CPTSD complex PTSD may have taken root.
And the difference? PTSD is typically ignited by traumas that were maybe devastating but relatively brief or had clear boundaries in time, like an accident, an attack.
Or even sometimes expected events like surgery or the sudden loss of someone beloved if the shock is overwhelming. Symptoms often include reliving the trauma, avoidance, negative changes in beliefs and feelings, hypervigilance.
Whereas complex PTSD, CPTSD, emerges from prolonged, repeated trauma.
Especially childhood trauma where escape wasn't possible, or chronic situations like intimate partner violence or captivity.
And the symptoms are broader.
Yes. Those with CPTSD experience the core PTSD symptoms, but their suffering extends into additional territories. Things like insecure attachment patterns, profound distrust in relationships, problems with boundaries.
Biological impacts, too.
Yes, developmental dysfunction, increased medical problems, significant struggles with emotional regulation, identifying, expressing, managing feelings. Dissociation is common, feeling detached from yourself or reality. Memory gaps.
Problems with behavioral control, impulsivity, aggression.
Cognitive impairments affecting planning, judgment, focus, and often a deeply distorted self-concept, devastated self-esteem, overwhelming shame.
And even complex changes in perception of the perpetrator.
Right, which can involve obsessive thoughts of revenge, paradoxically idealizing abusers, or even adopting the abuser's distorted belief system. It's incredibly complex, hence the name.
So with this understanding of how deeply trauma can impact us, how do we begin to let go? How does non-attachment help?
Dr. Attalla points to various effective trauma-focused therapies like EMDR, somatic experiencing, trauma-informed CBT, but then highlights how non-attachment skills are essential components of healing within or alongside those therapies.
And one of the most significant skills is
Letting go and cultivating forgiveness, specifically to overcome the lingering anger, bitterness, and resentment that keep the trauma alive.
he describes forgiveness as like opening a cage door, not for the one who hurt you, but for yourself.
To free yourself from the prison of the past.
It's the conscious decision to release those negative emotions that have taken up residence in your heart. When you forgive others, you unlock the chains of anger, resentment, bitterness that bind you to past injuries.
And when you forgive yourself.
The heavy burdens of guilt and shame can finally be set down.
When injustice or pain arrives at your doorstep, you stand at a crossroads, don't you?
Will you harbor bitterness? Let it fester. Or will you choose forgiveness not as a gift to the other, maybe they don't deserve it, but as medicine for your own wounded spirit?
And true forgiveness isn't usually a single moment, is it?
No, he says it's a continuing journey, a process of gradually, intentionally replacing toxic emotions with healing counterparts like compassion, empathy, peace.
And at its deepest level, forgiveness can become this state of understanding the other person, their history, their limitations, their own suffering perhaps, understanding their actions so completely.
That you can truthfully say, there is nothing left to forgive.
The wall between you dissolves in the light of complete comprehension. That's a profound state.
But remember, forgiving from the heart often unfolds gradually, like a flower opening petal by petal. Be patient with your own process.
And Dr. Attalla distinguishes two types of forgiveness here. Decisional forgiveness.
Which is the mind's choice. Okay, I choose to forgive even if the heart isn't there yet.
Right. A conscious decision that might precede the emotional healing. It's a start.
And then there's emotional forgiveness.
Where the actual feelings toward the offender transform. You genuinely release yourself from the internal negativity, the bitterness, the resentment.
That's heartfelt forgiveness, the real destination of the healing journey.
Because to truly heal from past wounds requires more than just intellectual decisions. You have to free yourself from that prison of resentment and bitterness that keeps you chained to the past.
While decisional forgiveness might reduce outward hostility, research shows it's often not enough on its own to improve stress levels or overall emotional health.
The path to true wholeness leads toward emotional forgiveness, letting go in the heart.
Okay, so Dr. Attalla outlines a powerful process for forgiveness, drawing heavily on cognitive behavioral therapy frameworks, especially the work of Everett Worthington and Robert Enright. It's divided into 4 distinct landscapes, each with its own terrain to navigate.
Let's walk through them.
The first is the uncovering phase. Think of yourself as an archaeologist carefully excavating buried artifacts.
Gently brushing away layers of denial.
To reveal the true shape and impact of the injustice in your life. This involves describing the specifics, what happened, How did it affect you emotionally, behaviorally, practically? How did it change your worldview? What thoughts keep recurring? Any physical harm?
And also identifying the complex feelings you have towards the offender: anger, hurt, fear, maybe even pity sometimes.
Getting really clear on the wound. That sets the stage. The second phase is the decision phase.
Standing at that crossroads.
You weigh the burden you've been carrying against the possibility of setting it down. Here, you make the conscious choice. Will you embrace forgiveness as your path forward, or will you choose to hold on to the grievance?
Exploring the pros and cons of forgiving for you. Envisioning how things might be different if you decide to forgive. Making an intentional commitment.
The third phase is the understanding phase. This is where perspective shifts.
Trying to see the offender's story.
With the compassionate, objective eyes of a historian, maybe. Beginning to see the complex human behind the hurtful actions, recognizing their own history, limitations, wounds, pressures.
Considering what life was like for them, growing up, their parents, environment, any neglect or abuse, genetic influences, what was happening in their life at the time of the offense.
This perspective shift doesn't excuse the behavior, but it opens space for healing within you. Then you reflect on your current feelings toward them, seeing if they've shifted.
And the final phase.
The meaning phase. This is transformative. You become the alchemist.
Turning the lead of suffering into the gold of meaning.
Exactly. Like Viktor Frankl in the concentration camps, you discover that while you cannot control what happened to you, you hold the profound power to choose how you respond to it, what meaning you make of it.
Finding the lessons, the growth.
Describing how you have grown, what you learned from the experience. Identifying the wisdom harvested from those difficult fields. Finding benefit in the experience even if it was painful.
A powerful four-stage process.
And a practical tool Dr. Attalla offers within this is writing a forgiveness letter.
As a vessel to carry away the weight.
Precisely. Like releasing a lantern into the night sky, this practice can illuminate your path forward. But remember, this letter is primarily for your healing. It's not usually meant for the offender's eyes.
You might share it with a therapist, a sponsor, a trusted friend.
But its main purpose is to free you from the grip of those negative emotions. It should include details like what they did, how it impacted you then and now, how you envision your life improving with forgiveness, how you've come to understand their actions, phase 3, why you see forgiveness as the best way forward, phase 2, and the key lessons learned, phase 4.
Bringing the whole process together in written form.
And the science really backs this up, doesn't it? Forgiveness as medicine.
Oh, absolutely. The research is quite clear. Greater forgiveness and specific forgiveness interventions based on these models act like a healing balm.
Associated with less stress, reduced anxiety, diminished depression, fewer negative emotions.
And overall better mental health. The benefits even extend into physical health, improved life satisfaction, fewer physical health complaints, better sleep quality, reduced fatigue.
There was one particularly illuminating study he mentions, focused on 20 women who'd experienced psychological abuse and divorce.
Half received forgiveness therapy based on Enright's model, half received alternative treatment focusing on assertiveness and anger validation.
And the results.
Those assigned to forgiveness therapy showed significantly greater improvements across multiple dimensions. Not just in forgiveness itself, but also self-esteem, reduced anxiety, both state and trait, less depression, greater environmental mastery, finding meaning, and fewer post-traumatic stress symptoms compared to the alternative group.
Wow, that's compelling evidence for its therapeutic power.
It really is.
Okay, this leads us naturally to identifying and replacing those trauma-related negative core beliefs.
The invisible architects, as Dr. Attalla calls them.
Silently shaping how we interpret and react to everything we encounter. When these beliefs have been formed in the shadow of trauma, they often construct a world that feels inherently threatening, untrustworthy, or hopeless.
And identifying them requires patience, honesty with oneself.
And while it's challenging, it's crucial to remember this truth he emphasizes. Just because a belief feels deeply true doesn't mean it actually is.
Feelings aren't facts.
Right. When you catch yourself thinking, I feel like such a loser, or I feel like nobody can be trusted, recognize that feelings, however powerful, aren't always reliable messengers of reality. They can be echoes of the past.
Dr. Attalla encourages us to approach our beliefs with the curious objectivity of a scientist. Label them simply as beliefs rather than truths about yourself or the world.
Like optical illusions, misrepresentations of reality can feel convincingly true.
Keep your mind open to the possibility that what feels most certain, especially if it's negative and rooted in trauma, may still be open to revision. non-attachment to the belief itself.
And before we dive into those specific beliefs, it's vital to clarify what forgiveness is not, because there are many misconceptions.
Good point. Forgiveness is not approving, condoning, denying, or overlooking harmful behavior. It doesn't make what happened okay.
It's not simply moving on without addressing what happened. That's often avoidance, not healing.
It's not forgetting or pretending nothing occurred. The memory remains, but hopefully its power to harm you diminishes.
It's not surrendering justified claims to fairness or legal accountability where appropriate.
It's not bargaining or negotiating with the offender.
It's also different from reconciliation. Reconciliation requires genuine remorse, apology, and changed behavior from all involved parties. You can forgive someone internally without ever reconciling or resuming a relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And crucially, forgiveness is not dependent on the one who harmed you. Making your forgiveness contingent on their apology or actions keeps you trapped, still giving them power over your emotional state.
And finally, it's not an immediate restoration of full trust. Trust, if possible at all, has to be rebuilt slowly, brick by brick, based on consistent, trustworthy behavior.
Important clarifications. Okay, let's look at some of those shadow gardens of trauma, the common negative core beliefs that can grow from trauma's seeds.
These invisible architectures shaping our view of self and world.
Like helplessness, the belief that no matter how hard you struggle, you just can't cope, you're powerless.
Or worthlessness. Seeing yourself through lenses that show only emptiness, lack of value.
Failure, like carrying an invisible scorecard that only ever records losses, never wins.
Unlovable or unlikable. The deep conviction that you're somehow fundamentally flawed and impossible to truly love or connect with.
Abandonment, that constant tremor of fear, warning that anyone who matters will eventually leave you, it makes intimacy terrifying.
Mistrust. Contaminating every interaction with suspicion, assuming others have hidden motives or will eventually betray you.
Vulnerability, transforming the world into a hostile landscape riddled with hidden dangers, making you constantly hypervigilant.
Emotional inhibition or repression. Learning to wear a mask so convincingly that eventually you forget your own true face underneath, fearing your own feelings.
Emotional deprivation, the ingrained belief that your core emotional needs for connection, empathy, protection will never be adequately met by others.
Entitlement, sometimes. Insecurity can wear a crown, convincing you you're special and deserve unique treatment, masking deeper feelings of inadequacy.
Punishment, carrying a perpetual sentence, believing you deserve to suffer for past mistakes or inherent flaws.
And insufficient self-control. The belief that your impulses, desires, or emotions are overwhelming and cannot be managed, leading to chaotic behavior or rigid suppression.
These beliefs, often operating unconsciously, can profoundly shape our reality. Practicing non-attachment towards them, questioning them, is key to healing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, a critical part of breaking these trauma chains involves forgiving yourself. This can be the hardest part for many.
Dr. Attalla highlights the crucial difference here between guilt and shame.
Guilt is like stubbing your toe. Oops, I did something bad. It's focused on behavior.
Shame, however, is like a full-body fever that convinces you I am bad. It attacks your very identity.
Have you ever noticed how guilt, when healthy, can actually motivate positive change, making amends, learning from mistakes?
Whereas shame often just paralyzes you, makes you want to hide, withdraw, or lash out. It feels toxic and unproductive.
Exactly. So based on cognitive therapy and the wisdom of the 12-step recovery programs, Dr. Attalla offers questions and skills to help release unhealthy guilt and shame.
Okay. First, you have to ask, what is the full measure of the damaging actions? Get really specific and objective.
Consider how impartial others might assess what you did. How will you view it in a month, a year? How would it affect you if someone did it to you? Could you realistically have anticipated the outcome? What was the actual extent of the damage? Not exaggerated by shame.
Getting perspective. Then, the crucial question, what is the full measure of your accountability?
Because guilt often operates in black and white, it was all my fault. But reality is usually shades of gray.
He suggests creating an accountability pie chart. List everyone who contributed to the situation, including yourself, systemic factors perhaps, and assign a realistic percentage of responsibility to each.
Are you carrying weight, carrying blame that isn't actually yours to bear? This can be incredibly freeing.
A crucial part of this process, drawing heavily from the 12-step program, involves breaking the silence and then making amends.
Step 5, breaking silence. Admitting your wrongs, the nature of them, to yourself, to your higher power as you understand it, and critically to another human being.
Why is sharing so important?
Because secrets are like poison. Shame thrives in darkness and isolation, but it often dissolves when brought into the light of acceptance and understanding with a safe person.
This isn't about minimizing or exaggerating, but honest, courageous sharing. As they say in AA, you're only as sick as your secrets.
It might feel terrifying, like stepping off a cliff, but countless people find that this is where they finally gain the freedom to fly.
Then comes steps 8 and 9, making amends.
Step 8 is making a list of all persons you have harmed and becoming willing to make amends to them all.
Just the list and the willingness.
Yes. Imagine your life as a house where clutter and mess have accumulated in the closets. This step is like opening all the closet doors and just looking honestly at what's there. You write the list without overthinking, filtering, or judging yet. Include everyone, big or small harms.
This isn't about clearing your conscience at the expense of others.
No. The focus is on cleaning your side of the street, taking responsibility for your part. You do the work without attachment to how the other person might respond. The outcome is not the primary goal. The sincere effort is.
And step 9.
Making direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when doing so would injure them or others. This requires careful discernment, often guidance from a sponsor or therapist.
Real amends often go beyond just saying sorry, right?
Absolutely. If you stole money, amends includes repayment, if feasible. If you spread gossip, it might involve correcting the record. Actions speak louder than words.
And what if direct amends are impossible or harmful?
If the person has died, or contact would be genuinely unsafe for them or you, then indirect amends can offer meaningful resolution. Things like writing unsent letters expressing remorse and responsibility, symbolic rituals, prayer, community service, or using the empty chair technique in therapy.
Finding ways to complete the process internally.
But there are often barriers to making amends, aren't there?
Oh, yes. Shame often builds the tallest barriers, convincing you you're too broken, too awful to deserve reconciliation or forgiveness.
Fear blocks the path too. Anxiety about the other person's anger, rejection, or judgment.
Pride whispers that apologizing shows weakness, or maybe lingering resentment insists the other person should apologize first.
Some tell themselves, oh, it's too late now, or it wasn't really that important anyway. Minimizing.
But these barriers, however real they feel, are often distortions created by the ego, by fear, to maintain the status quo, rather than risk the vulnerability of genuine accountability and connection.
And Dr. Attalla reminds us, echoing many traditions, that the most difficult person to forgive is often, ultimately, yourself.
But without self-forgiveness, the garden of your life remains untended. Potential for new growth gets choked by the weeds of old regrets and self-recrimination.
To continue that journey of self-forgiveness, Dr. Attalla presents Step 10. Continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it.
Daily maintenance.
Exactly. Have you ever noticed how easily dust accumulates in a home, even after a thorough cleaning? Our inner lives are similar. Step 10 invites you to become a diligent caretaker of your inner space,
Not a once-in-a-lifetime deep clean, but ongoing upkeep.
preventing the buildup of resentment, dishonesty, fear, selfishness. Imagine pausing, maybe twice daily, perhaps midday and evening, just to briefly sweep your inner rooms.
What questions would you ask?
During these moments of quiet reflection, did resentment take up residence in my heart today? Did fear or selfishness direct my actions? Did dishonesty, even subtle, color my words or behavior? Do I owe someone an apology? Did kindness and love flow through my interactions? What might I have done differently?
But this inventory isn't just about finding fault, is it?
No. Like a gardener who notices both the weeds and the beautiful blooms, take time to acknowledge what flowered beautifully in your day. What kindness did you offer or receive? What challenge did you meet with courage or grace? Give yourself credit for these moments without exaggeration.
The beauty lies in its simplicity and immediacy. Rather than carrying regrets for years, you address missteps promptly, like wiping up a spill before it stains the floor permanently.
And finally, for self-forgiveness, Dr. Attalla suggests writing a self-forgiveness letter.
Similar to the forgiveness letter for others, but directed inward.
Yes. Have you noticed how easily compassion flows toward a friend who messed up, yet it freezes solid when directed inward? We become our own harshest judges.
Applying standards to ourselves we'd never impose on someone we love.
A self-forgiveness letter serves as a mirror, reflecting back that same kindness, understanding, and compassion you'd offer dear friend.
It's not about excusing harmful behavior.
But about recognizing your shared humanity, your capacity to err, to be influenced by circumstances or past wounds, and most importantly, your capacity to learn, grow, and change beyond past limitations.
So you write the letter guided by prompts similar to the other forgiveness letter.
Exactly. Naming the wrongs specifically, acknowledging their impact on yourself and others, reflecting honestly on how life experiences or your own shortcomings influenced your behavior back then, and gathering the wisdom, the lessons learned from those difficult experiences. Offering yourself compassion.
A powerful set of tools for healing the past through non-attachment and forgiveness. Okay, beyond these deeper dives into self-esteem and trauma, Dr. Attalla offers other practical ways to practice non-attachment in daily life.
Let's cover some of those.
First, self-control. Not in a rigid, white-knuckled way, but mindful self-direction. Think of habits, negative thought patterns, reactive behaviors as rivers that have carved deep channels in your life.
Redirecting their flow takes awareness and patience.
Yes. Start by listing habits you wish to navigate differently. Maybe enlist an ally, a friend, therapist, sponsor. Choose one behavior to focus on redirecting first. Set small, realistic, achievable goals. Remember, you are the navigator of your choices, even if the currents are strong.
Then there's generosity and simplicity.
Have you noticed how a tightly clenched fist can't receive anything new?
True.
The same principle applies to our approach to possessions, maybe even ideas. Simplicity isn't about ascetic deprivation necessarily.
But about the freedom that comes from holding things lightly, appreciating them without clinging.
It's not what you have, but how you hold what you have that determines whether possessions serve you or imprison you.
And those who have climbed highest on the mountain of spiritual growth, they often discover a surprising truth, don't they?
That material gain becomes increasingly irrelevant the higher they climb. Instead, the joy of sharing becomes the treasure they seek.
Especially true for the most precious gifts. Love, wisdom, truth. What might you share today, however small, that could bring light to another's path? That act itself cultivates non-attachment.
Which leads to another profound practice. Consciously seeing the impermanence all around you and actively letting go of possessiveness.
Because attachment thrives in that soil of denial, refusing to acknowledge that everything in this world is temporary.
Like a child believing the sandcastle will withstand the tide, we cling to the illusion of permanence.
But the truth whispers constantly, if we only listen. Everything changes. Everything passes. Your children grow up and leave home. Friendships evolve or end. Routines shift. Homes transform or are lost.
Even your own body and mind are in constant flux, moment to moment.
As that ancient wisdom reminds us, ignorance of impermanence generates attachments and therefore suffering, sickness, and fear of death.
Sometimes your most profound teacher wears the face of loss. Because loss strips away pretense and reveals what truly matters, what endures beyond form.
Have you ever just sat quietly with the direct knowledge, the felt sense, that one day everything worldly you hold dear will be taken from you by time or death?
It sounds morbid to our death-avoidant culture.
But this contemplation actually offers tremendous freedom. If everything is temporary, what remains truly worth clinging to with that white-knuckled grip? Perhaps only love, consciousness itself.
Remember, ownership itself is ultimately an illusion. You no more own your possessions than a wave owns a specific portion of the ocean for more than a fleeting moment.
Everything belongs to the world, comes from the world, returns to the world.
As psychologist Jean-Yves Leloup beautifully expressed it, to look at an object, a person, or a landscape with love and without attachment, with no desire for appropriation of it, is to see it more clearly. We were not created to possess, but to be with.
To be with, that's powerful. And this brings us back to the power of inner practices like meditation, mantras, prayers.
Tools to cultivate that inner state.
When was the last time you just sat quietly, even for 5 minutes, and simply witnessed the parade of your thoughts without joining their procession, without getting on the thought train?
Meditation invites you to discover empirically, through direct experience, that you are not your possessions, not your body, not your thoughts, not your emotions.
You are the awareness beholding them all, the unchanging screen on which the movie plays.
Start simply, Dr. Attalla suggests, just 10 minutes daily. Focus on your breath as an anchor.
And when thoughts inevitably arise, because they will,
Don't fight them, don't judge them, but also don't follow them down the rabbit hole. Simply notice. Thinking is happening, or label it planning, worrying, remembering, and gently, firmly return your attention to your breath, over and over.
in the stillness that arises between thoughts or beneath them, you may glimpse something extraordinary.
The one who watches the thoughts. Your true self, beyond all labels and limitations. This piece isn't something you create through effort.
It's something you uncover that was always already there, beneath the noise.
And mantras and prayers can serve as life rafts in daily life, anchoring you to these truths when the waves get rough.
Try repeating these truth anchors, Dr. Attalla suggests, maybe daily or when feeling attached. Nothing in this world truly belongs to me, whether it be an object, person, my own body, thoughts, or knowledge.
Or, I am not my body, nor my thoughts or knowledge, nor my emotions, nor my possessions, reminding yourself of the deeper identity.
I was not created to possess, but to be with.
I am okay with or without. A powerful affirmation of inner sufficiency.
And simply, value everything, but become attached to none of it. Appreciate without clinging.
Another potent practice for non-attachment is humbly recognizing that you don't know everything, releasing intellectual certainty.
Oh, yeah. Have you ever been absolutely certain about something, only to discover later you were completely wrong?
Happens all the time if we're honest.
Non-attachment includes releasing our tight grip on the illusion of complete knowledge, of having it all figured out.
We often experience life like viewers completely absorbed in a compelling movie, so immersed that we forget we're watching projections on a screen, filtered through our own perceptions and biases.
Every now and then, wisdom allows us to step back, maybe through mindfulness or contemplation, and recognize that what we perceive is heavily filtered through the lens of our current consciousness, our conditioning, our beliefs. It's not the whole picture.
This connects directly to Dr. Attalla's ultimate invitation, the core inquiry. Ask yourself deeply, who are you?
If you follow this question relentlessly down to its depths, what do you discover?
You are not your name, not your body, not your history, not your roles, not your emotions, not even your most cherished thoughts or beliefs. What remains when all these temporary identifications fall away?
The witness, the observer, the experiencer.
That which is aware of all these changing phenomena, but itself remains fundamentally unchanged. Pure awareness. That's the pointer.
And what about those powerful emotions of desire? How do we practice non-attachment there?
Imagine holding a pen tightly in your hand. Feel the tension.
Okay.
Now, simply open your fingers and watch it fall. Releasing desire, Dr. Attalla suggests using techniques from teachers like David R. Hawkins, works much the same way. It's a simple opening, a letting go of the energy behind the desire.
So when desire arises for an object, a person, an outcome,
Feel it fully in your body. Locate the sensation. Skip the moral judgment, I shouldn't want this. Release the force behind it, the compulsion. Let go of any resistance to the feeling. Release any fear or guilt tangled up with the desire. Bypass the chattering mind, justifying or condemning it.
and focus solely on the raw energy of the feeling itself, allowing it to be there without acting on it or fighting it, just letting it dissipate on its own.
If you find yourself really stuck, feeling like you can't let go, Dr. Attalla suggests a playful approach from Hawkins. Imagine someone offering you $10 million if you could just let go of that specific desire or feeling right now.
Suddenly, impossible might become possible. It reveals it's often a choice, even if difficult.
Exactly. It bypasses the ego's excuses. Another simple but profound practice he mentions for releasing attachment is the Sedona method, developed by Lester Levinson.
Using key questions when feeling stuck in desire or attachment.
Yes, 4 core questions. 1, could I let this feeling attachment go? Just asking if it's possible. 2, would I let it go? Am I willing? 3, when? Inviting immediacy, like now. 4, how do I feel now? Noticing any shift.
And you repeat the cycle.
Yes, going deeper each time, gently dissolving the grip of attachment layer by layer.
This leads to another crucial aspect, letting go of expectations and attachment to outcomes.
Oh, this is huge in daily life. Have you noticed how often expectations set the stage for disappointment?
Constantly. It was supposed to go this way.
What if you approach life differently? Doing your absolute best, putting in the effort, acting with integrity.
While simultaneously releasing attachment to specific results, trusting the process, accepting what comes.
When circumstances upset you, it's almost always a sign you're clinging to how you thought things should be, rather than accepting what is.
In those moments, the advice is often, return to your breath, that fateful anchor in the present moment. Ground yourself.
Step away if needed. Take a pause. Allow the emotional storm, the disappointment, the anger, the frustration to pass through you before responding, if possible.
If rain pours on your outdoor wedding day, you have 2 options, right?
Mourn the sunny ceremony you envisioned, feeding the disappointment.
Or grab an umbrella, have your first dance in the rain, and create a memory perhaps even more magical and authentic than the one you meticulously planned.
The external circumstance, the rain, remains identical. Only your relationship to it changes. That's non-attachment in action.
Dr. Attalla also introduces the paradoxical commandments, written by Dr. Kent M. Keith when he was a student. These offer a really revolutionary approach to non-attachment, especially in relationships and service.
Inviting us to do good, to love, to build, to succeed, not for reward or recognition, but simply for its own sake, regardless of the outcome or how people react.
Exactly. They include powerful statements like, people are illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered. Love them anyway.
Whoa.
If you do good, people will accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Do good anyway.
Takes courage.
If you are successful, you will win false friends and true enemies. Succeed anyway.
Don't let fear of criticism stop you.
The good you do today will be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway.
Letting go of the need for legacy.
Honesty and frankness make you vulnerable. Be honest and frank anyway.
Choosing authenticity over self-protection.
The biggest men and women with the biggest ideas can be shot down by the smallest men and women with the smallest minds. Think big anyway.
Don't shrink your vision.
People favor underdogs, but follow only top dogs. Fight for a few underdogs anyway.
Acting on principle, not popularity.
What you spend years building may be destroyed overnight. Build anyway.
Resilience in the face of impermanence.
People really need help but may attack you if you help them. Help people anyway.
Overcoming fear of rejection and service.
And finally, give the world the best you have and you'll get kicked in the teeth. Give the world the best you have anyway.
That's a radical invitation to selfless action, completely free from attachment to outcome or validation. Just giving your best.
It really is. And finally, a simple yet profound practice. Don't forget the power of humor in the moment.
Lightening up.
Yes.
Yeah.
When was the last time you really laughed at yourself? Not with harsh self-deprecation, but with genuine amusement at the human comedy, the absurdity of the situations we find ourselves in, the silly ways our ego gets hooked.
In moments of intense attachment or taking yourself way too seriously, invite laughter into the room. It's like your inner child peeking through the curtains of solemn adulthood.
Reminding you that life, while important, is perhaps too important to be taken so seriously all the time.
When you can find the absurdity within life's challenges, not denying the pain, but refusing to be solely defined by it, you release tremendous tension.
Laughter creates space where before there was only constriction. It melts the frozen postures of our self-importance, our rigid expectations.
It reminds us that while life contains tragedy, life itself is not, perhaps, ultimately a tragedy. There's lightness, too.
So, what might you find amusing about your current attachments if you viewed them through the lens of gentle, compassionate humor? Another angle for letting go.
Lots of practical pathways there.
Absolutely. So as we come towards the end of this deep dive into non-attachment, just take a moment to consider how embracing this principle, even a little bit more, might profoundly transform your life. The practice of holding life with open hands, rather than clenched fists. It's not just some lofty spiritual nicety, is it?
No, it's presented here as a practical, accessible path to genuine freedom, resilience, and peace in the midst of life's inevitable ups and downs.
Remember that non-attachment doesn't mean not caring. That's a crucial takeaway.
On the contrary. Paradoxically, it allows you to care more deeply, more authentically, but without the suffering that comes from confusing love with possession or presence with permanence.
When you love something or someone without demanding they stay unchanged, without clinging, you experience the world with fresh eyes.
Seeing beauty, perhaps even more sharply, because you acknowledge its impermanence, appreciating the present moment fully.
The journey of non-attachment, as we've explored, is both moment by moment and lifelong. It's a practice.
Some days you'll hold things lightly. With the grace of a seasoned practitioner, you'll feel free.
Other days, you'll grasp and clutch and resist like a beginner all over again.
And both experiences are part of the path. What matters isn't achieving some state of perfect, perpetual non-attachment.
But the willingness to notice when you're clinging, when you're caught, and gently, kindly open your hands once more. Again and again.
The noticing itself is progress.
So as you move forward from this conversation, maybe carry this simple yet profound question with you. What might I be holding too tightly today?
Let it be your quiet companion through joy and sorrow, success and failure, certainty and doubt.
In time, you may discover, as Dr. Attalla suggests, that the very things you once thought you couldn't possibly live without were actually barriers.
Barriers to experiencing your true nature, which is already boundless, complete, already whole, beneath the layers of attachment and identification.
The practice of non-attachment reveals that your deepest fulfillment doesn't come from what you have or what you do, but ultimately from who you are beneath all appearances.
And that essential self, that core awareness, it needs no enhancement, no achievement, no acquisition to be worthy of love and acceptance. It just is.
May your journey toward non-attachment, however it unfolds, bring you the peace that comes not from controlling life, but from learning to dance with it, no matter what tune is playing.